Now we are 4 weeks away from the national vote. Rise Mzansi, new to the political scene, the party has launched its election manifesto and is actively vying for your vote with a focus on the economy, leadership, community safety and climate change. What exactly does Rise Mzansi bring to the table 30 years post-democracy? Party leader Songezo Zibi joins me now. Thank you so much for your time and for coming to studio, Songezo.
Thank you.
I was going through your site over the weekend and the word modern jumped out at me in the sentence, building a modern political organization of patriotic South Africans. What does that positioning speak to?
So I think politics has been done in a particular way in South Africa, which involves being named leaders. So you've got to follow the leader. The personalities are big in South African politics, first of all. And secondly, political parties are very insular. They've got their own branches, their own branch leaders, their own processes, which exclude everybody else. So they're not embedded in the communities and the voters that they want to convince. And thirdly, it's just shifting from your traditional isms of politics, because we've got a very open way of engagement. So we don't have memberships in the way political parties do. We have community meetings. So even if people belong to other political parties, they're part of our conversation, first of all. And secondly, we emphasize leadership at a local level. So we define politics wider than just party politics. Civic action is political activity, you know, as an example. So we expand the scope of politics. And finally, we also have decided to go for a social democratic formulation, which is a more sort of modern, progressive form of politics, as opposed to saying we are Marxists or we are socialists or capitalists, right? It takes account of where the world is at the moment and defines freedom in a new way.
You talk about basically, you know, you do emphasize leadership a lot in your manifesto, and now you talk about obviously moving from the traditional way of how leadership is seen to a new one. And I'm wondering then, how do you plan on navigating that in terms of knowing who to hold accountable?
So, I mean, firstly, it's the definition of leadership. Let me just give a very simple example since we're at Business Day TV. So, Eskom hasn't had a permanent finance director or chief executive for I don't know how long, right?
Yeah.
That's a leadership problem. It's not a policy problem. You either want an organization like that, which holds 2 percentage points GDP growth at bay right now, to function properly, or you don't. Transnet, similarly. So the 2 state-owned companies that hold 3% GDP growth, according to the Reserve Bank, because of the constraints they have, you are not going to appoint leaders in those organizations. That's a leadership failure. It's not a policy failure. State of municipalities and so on. So what we're saying, you need new and different political leaders who understand the importance of having proper, capable leadership to pull the levers that we need in order to, you know, to get things sorted. So that's what that leadership thing means.
Countrywide, do you think that we have a policy problem or an implementation problem, or just a case where, in terms of our economic situation, where we haven't really applied our minds to the core issues that are causing such subdued and deteriorating economic growth?
Look, I think the habit in South African politics is to always look for a brilliant new idea. But guess what? Municipalities are collapsing. Every business, every single one of them is in a municipality. There is no clever policy solution that the Minister of Trade and Industry is ever going to come out which is going to overcome that problem. So fix municipalities. Secondly, crime. It's not for the finance minister to solve, right? Solve that problem. Then you release confidence into investment, and even like at the local level. In Mthatha, where I come from, if you open a cash business, you're dead, right? So the investment appetite, even locally, is not there because of crime. Thirdly, it's a utilities problem we spoke about. So what I'm trying to say is, once again, it comes down to getting the basics right.
And it's not new ideas.
It's not. Honestly, it's not. We're always chasing the new idea to cover up for the fact that we are not getting the basics right. And that's been the story of South Africa's economic failure over the last 15 to 20 years.
I guess also another thing that would be seen to be contributing a lot to the deterioration of economic growth is not enough support for the small business community. And I've spoken to a few people that have said that these manifestos that have come out from the political parties haven't really gone far enough, because we know that small businesses are the backbone of the economy, and those manifestos haven't gone far enough in terms of, incentivizing and supporting the small business sector. Yeah. How far are you going with that?
So, I mean, in addition to the stuff that we're talking about, because I never want to leave it aside as if it's not important, because it really is important. One of the things we think is possible, if you think about the so-called 500 billion that was released by the Reserve Bank, by the government, it wasn't actual money. But one of the things that was done is that the liquidity ratios that the banks have to comply with were relaxed, which released more capital into the lending space, right? So that businesses can have access to cash and credit and liquidity during the time of the pandemic. We have an ongoing crisis. You can release another 100 billion in that way. But it's got to be accompanied by what? It's got to be accompanied by proper support. We need to understand why small businesses fail and support them so that you don't waste that money, right? So sometimes people talk about this problem as if, no, it's just access to money. But the person, it's been a side hustle, they haven't run a business before. They need help to use that credit properly so that the business can grow and create jobs.
All right. To wrap up the interview.
Yes.
What are you saying to the man on the ground in terms of what Rise Mzansi is offering and bringing to the table?
I've got two messages.
Yeah.
One is about what we're offering, and it's an opportunity to move away from the politics that 28 million South Africans hate, right? Because the biggest voting bloc are the guys who don't vote.
Yes.
Because they hate political parties.
And that's what you're gunning for.
That's what we believe. That's what we believe the opportunity is, right? With people who are fed up with the old political parties and want something new. I ask them to look carefully at our offering. But the most important thing, this election is the most important. If people think that by not voting they can effect change, the opposite is going to happen. What I want to encourage everyone to do, please, please, go out and vote. Encourage everyone you know who says they're not going to vote to take a careful look at the political parties, spend longer time with Rise Mzansi, and then vote on the 29th of May.
All right. Actually, just one quick question, because it has been disclosed and widely reported that you did get the biggest single donation from Rebecca Oppenheimer. About 15 million rand. What can we deduce from this? Is it a vote of confidence from a family that has been a long-standing contributor to the economy?
Well, not the family. By the way, the only person we met was Rebecca herself. And the donation came from her. And it came after a series of conversations about what we stand for, what our politics is about, how we're organizing, whether we really knew or not. And she took that decision. I haven't met any other member of her family. So it's from her, not, as far as I know, it's not from the family. And the declaration says it's Rebecca rather than a structure or a trust or that sort of thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and just giving us insights and an outline on what Rise Mzansi stands for and what you're offering to the table. That was Rise Mzansi leader Songezo Zibi.